today we have a guy that is just, I don't know, for me personally, so inspiring that I encountered Jay. I found you on YouTube as I was doing some research. And I thought your story was amazing and brilliant, and then started digging in because I saw that you were a certified B company. And I went down the rabbit hole, and I'm sure you have a lot of fans. I would tell you I am among your biggest fans, because when I look at being a great leader and an amazing human being, you fill both buckets very robustly. So thank you for being here.
You're so welcome, and thank you. You're far too kind. I need to have you talk to my children.
Well, I will talk to them because you are an amazing human. Jay, I want to start with kind of this transition that you went through. So you were growing your business, you were successful, you decided to take in some investment. That got a little rocky, and you decided to buy the company back as you did that. Can you share that story that you went through?
Yeah, reliving the dark days as we call them now. What happened in the late 90s, early 2000s, I was transitioning a traditional business. I had founded a printing and sign company years before that, and we had stumbled upon some opportunities to build software as a service, essentially to build websites for other printing companies was our initial product. And we had opportunities to grow really fast. So like a lot of companies in that time, in the years 2000, early 2001, we went out and raised capital so we could accelerate our growth, and raised around $2 million from venture capital firms. And then I loaded up my board of directors with experts from those firms. I remember thinking at the time that these people know way more than I do, and I want to learn from them. I want to soak up every ounce of knowledge I can. And what I didn't think about at the time, which I now know, is that it's not advisable, it's not wise to take, say, for example, a 5-member board and give 3 board seats to investors that now control aspects of your business. It's something that I didn't really think about much, because all I thought about was, upside, positivity, everything's going to be great. I need their help and insight. Well, we started to grow the business, expand really quickly, and then 9/11 happened. The economy just fell apart. Prior to 9/11, the teams of people we had out selling our products and services were closing 2 out of every 3 or 4 demos they were doing. I mean, just killing it in the marketplace. And then 9/11 happened, and then all of a sudden they couldn't get appointments, not even being able to close demos. And if they did get an appointment, they were closing like 1 out of 15. It just changed overnight for us. And although we had a lot of money in the bank from the recent fundraise, we all of a sudden just started to show, trend line downward, and we were burning cash. We had enough cash to get through, at least I thought so, but our investor-led board and I got into a major disagreement, let's just say. They wanted me essentially to let go half of our entire company.
Oh, wow.
And I refused. I couldn't, with a good heart and a good conscience, I could not do that, because I didn't think it was necessary, first and foremost. And we got into a fight, and then they called a special meeting, and on a 3-1 vote, because I was a board member and abstained, obviously, on a 3-1 vote, they essentially fired me as the CEO of my own company.
Wow.
And I remember sitting down in the days following that with other team members, my senior leadership team, and I just shared with them, look, guys, I don't know what to do. This is what happened. But what happened over the course of a couple of weeks is that my team, I had about 30 to 40 employees at that time, I think around 35. And they came together and they came up with this plan. It wasn't driven by me. They came up with this plan for each of them to take a 50% pay cut. And several of them, in addition to that, took paid deferrals. So, it wasn't money coming out of our bank account. The company would pay them back if and when we could. And a few people took 100% deferral because they lived with roommates, and they had enough in the bank, they were fine. But what happened in those couple of weeks was the people in our company it forged this company culture that still exists to this day. We're all in this together. We have each other's backs. We learned what it takes to build a company. It took me a couple of months, but I was able to go and get on my hands and knees and beg and plead and sell. And I got other people to buy out those investors. So we got those people out. I was able to reclaim my seat as CEO. And within a year and a half, we were wildly profitable. And everyone had not only been paid back on the deferred compensation, but also on the cut compensation that they had agreed to cut. And so that was really the catalyst for what became the culture of our business, for sure.
It had to have been so humbling for people to say, Jay, I believe in you so much and what you've created that I'll take a full pay deferral or I'll take a pay cut. What did that feel like for you as the leader of the organization?
It took me quite a while to really fully grasp and understand that. My natural wiring then and even now is that they didn't make that decision based on their belief in me. They made that decision based on their belief in what all of us had built together. And it was an inherent, just without really even thinking about it, an inherent quality that I learned from my parents, not the appearance of, but the reality of actually bringing voices to the table and hearing and seeing and acknowledging other people in the equation. So they knew that they had a stake. In fact, they had all been given equity in the business. It was a really important part of building it. And they all had a stake in the company, and they felt ownership along with me. So I really, truly didn't feel it was belief in me so much as belief in what we together have built and created.
I think you're being humble. I think at the outset, you're right. It's like, it's the leader that sets that tone, and then the people who galvanize behind it. But if you were a real jerk, it's real hard to have a we in that, because I've seen that over time, right? When people galvanize behind someone, it's because there's some tipping point that happened to start. And, as I've said to leaders before, you don't have to be all the firewood, but you can be the match that strikes to get it going. And so I appreciate your humility. And I also think you probably led some fertile ground for people to step into that we concept. Have you always, has this always been your approach? Because, I know you became a certified B company, triple bottom line, people, profits, and planet, right?
Yes.
That you can do right and you can do good. Has it always been your philosophy in running your organization that certified B just kind of put a stamp on that, or how had you aligned to that? Or was that a tipping point for you to say like, maybe there's another way to do this?
Without question, that was a critical step in the evolution of what has become Firespring and our business. The seed, though, was planted for me when I was 15 years old. I got elected to serve on my school's student council, and the penance was that I had to go to leadership class. So it's like, okay, great. Now I have to go to leadership class. What's that all about? And the options were to take this series of like 8 weekends, like Saturday afternoons for 8 weeks and a couple hours at a time, to go to the school and learn from one of our vice principals, who reminded me of that guy from the Breakfast Club that beat Judd Nelson up in the closet. I wanted no part of that. So I chose the other option, which was go to a leadership camp. It's called Launch Leadership. And what happened to me over those 4 nights, 5 days at this leadership camp completely changed my life. It was all immersive. There was no lectures.
And you were 15.
I was 15 years old.
Transformative. That's amazing.
It was the first time I'd ever been in an environment where I really got to learn about myself, where I got to shine a light inside and try to figure out, who am I? What do I believe? And I realized, wait a minute, my beliefs aren't necessarily the same as my parents. I don't have to believe the same thing that they or my grandparents believe. It just kind of blew my mind that I had this autonomy and individualism that never crossed my mind growing up until that point. Keep in mind, this was before the internet too. So, those influences are different today. But there was a sign that hung on the wall in the little classroom where me and the other group of, there were 12 students in a group. They called it a co-op. And that was my learning cohort for the week. And I got to know those other kids better than I knew my best friends, at school and my own siblings, right? I knew them. I shared things with them that I'd never shared with anyone. And at the end of the week, I took this little sign off the wall. It's a Stephen Grillet quote. It was a Quaker missionary. And the quote says, "I expect to pass through this world but once. Any good, therefore, that I can do or any kindness I can show, let me do it now. Let me not defer or neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again." And I took that quote off the wall. It's been hanging above my mirror and at home or above my desk here at work for my entire adult life. And I remember thinking, as I was in the backseat of my mother's car being driven home from this workshop in a days of sleeplessness, I remember thinking that someday I'm going to start a company where this is the ethos. I didn't know what it was going to be. I knew I was wired as an entrepreneur like my father and grandfather, which simply means I'm unemployable. That's all that means. And it's often more than a curse and a blessing. But I knew I was going to do something on my own, but I didn't know what it was going to be. And I knew that was going to be the ethos. So that's where the seed was planted. That sign today or depictions of it hang all over our business, and it's ingrained into the culture of our company. That's where the seed was planted for sure.
It's amazing that at 15, you were able to internalize that lesson and to say, this is who I aspire to be over the course of my life.
Yeah.
Someone of service.
It is, it's a gift and I've been volunteering for that same organization, by the way, for nearly 40 years, like 37 years. I go back and lead my own group of 12 students through their process of self-discovery and learning how to be a servant leader. And I've been doing that. It's one of the most important things that I do in my life every year. And all of my kids have gone through, the program, and it's become a really important thing for me.
I think it's moments like that when I look at businesses and really what is the purpose of what it is that we're doing, right? So sure, the outright responsibility for any for-profit business is to turn a profit, right? We have to stay in business. We have to continue to pay our people. We have to continue to grow opportunities. But isn't it amazing that you can use that platform to do good? And I think about, 40 years you've been giving back to its impact leadership. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Launch Leadership is the name of the organization.
Launch Leadership. Sorry. And so, you have found this mix of being able to run a business that has been successful for a long period of time, continue to grow, and yet continue to be a good steward of the resources to return them to the community, to also have impact inside the community. Can you tell me about that journey, your thinking, why that was important to you, as opposed to just trying to stack $100 bills into the bank account?
Yeah, I think that there are many of us. It took me longer than I would like to admit. But there are many of us that start out in business entrepreneurship with that mentality. I certainly was one of them. Even though I had this lesson of servant leadership and I had this ethos and mantra seated in me, I still fell prey to this perception of crush your competitors. You got to hit numbers. You got to grow. And while I didn't do it at all costs, like I know some business leaders do, I still got caught up in that mantra of just crushing and hustling and all of those things. And I had an opportunity through a dear friend of mine who spent a lot of time going to Burning Man and doing other things that started to tell me about mindfulness and meditation. And I came to this realization, that we're all of us are just stumbling, working through insecurities, wanting to be loved, and trying to figure things out. The more conscious that I became around those things, the more I understood there's no such thing as an expert. There's no such thing as perfection. And I just started to really focus on building my skills as a conscious leader. And I had glimpses of things that worked great over the years, that I would rise up and and do the right thing. And then I would go back into the grind mode and just grind, and until I finally learned meditation and mindfulness and learned how to tend to myself and learn how to truly be present in a moment and to bring myself into full presence. I wasn't able to affect the kind of business growth that was possible. It was really a shift in just understanding how I need to tend to myself and how I need to focus on becoming the leader that I'm capable of becoming. Not about trying to convince anyone else that they need to become anything. It's not about trying to teach or train or mentor or anything to others. The only person I can affect is right here.
I think that's such an important lesson. I chuckled a little bit, Jay, when you were talking about, grinding and more and now, and you crush the competition. I used to repeat to myself as a young leader, it's not enough to win, the competition must perish. And,
Yes.
That was great in the moment and certainly got my testosterone going. And,
Mhm.
but as I look back over the course of my career, and it's like you, it's like, what is it that we're bringing to the world? How can I show up? How can I create this fertile environment like you have, where people feel we instead of the working for Jay, the me? And I find that it's people's egos that get in the way of that.
Mhm.
Is that your experience?
Without question, I think it's ego. Yes, there is a lot of ego at play. It's also just about it's about framing. Dr. Stephen Covey, when he did the 7 Habits, which I believe is the most important work that's ever been published around self-improvement. I just think there's so much gold there. But his concept around the difference between an abundance mindset and a scarcity mindset.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of framing that we have, whether we have ego or not. We have this framing that, there's not enough for all of us, so we've got to fight for ours. Someone with an abundance mindset is an optimist. They're genuinely happy when other people achieve success, and they know that if the people around them, the people they love, even the people they're competing against, succeed, it just expands and opens opportunities for all of us. And if just we can reframe from that mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance, that I believe is a big part of the battle. So the combination of ego and framing between abundance and scarcity is where I think the focus should be.
I love that. I say all the time, what's the story that you're telling yourself?
Yeah.
Because when your thoughts, your feelings, or your actions aren't serving you, then you have to change them. It's imperative for you to change them because you're on a mission. You're trying to impact the world in a positive way with these people who have come along to join you. And so it's super important and super critical to do that. Talk to me a little bit about the company's values, because they're pretty unique. And it came as no surprise once I read them. I was like, oh, that sounds about like the guy that I've met here. Tell us about the company values. What are the 3 values?
And I will share, before I share what the values are, the values, and I believe this is important for all companies, for any enterprise, any organization, anyone that operates with people in the equation, where they need to understand how to live an organization's values. But our values come not from me or our leadership team sitting down over a weekend on a strategy retreat and then coming back and saying, all right, here's what we value. We actually believe that values that are created internally among the people that are part of an organization is what makes values strong and persistent, and something that will truly be embodied in the actions of every team member. I think it's really important to think that way. So the first value is to bring it every day. It's about this mindset of effort and achievement and growth and being present. There's a lot of mindfulness in that as well, about bringing the best part of you every day, but acknowledging the whole time that we're all human. And we're all going to walk through the door, or walk to our bedroom and log into the computer wherever we're working from, bringing to that, whatever happened to us in the previous 3 hours, in our homes, in our personal lives. And balancing that awareness and giving grace to one another, but bringing everything you've got to the table. So that's one aspect. And then we have a value called have each other's backs. And that is about 100% supporting, lifting each other up when we're struggling. A long time ago, before it became popular, and then before it became a negative thing, we started doing unlimited time off for our full-time people. So, and we still have that. It's still unlimited vacation, but doing it 15 years, we've been through the ups and downs. There's a lot of negative perceptions of that kind of policy now, because what happens is there's proof, and there's proof that companies that have unlimited time off policies, that their people actually take less vacation than those that have like a standard vacation policy. So we address that. We have in our quarterly conversations once a quarter, and we sit down with every team member, and we have a conversation with their manager about how can we remove obstacles, how can we make your job better. My job here is to serve you as your manager. It's that servant leadership mentality. But then one of the questions is, are you taking enough time for yourself? And the managers are very progressive at ensuring that people take the time that they need and encouraging them to go see the world. Take a month off and go to Thailand and learn a different way of life. There's so many things that we can do. And so that value, having each other's backs, feeds into our unlimited vacation policy, because now we have the backs of one another when we're doing this. And we all know that there are some people that need to take time off to care for an aging parent or a sick child or whatever. We want our employees to be room dads and room moms in their schools and to volunteer and take part. So we also have a policy that's part of that every employee in our organization gets one full day off a month, paid time, to go volunteer for an organization of their choice. And that kind of builds into that value. And then the third value is to give a shit. It's about that depth of caring. And I will be honest and say that when we first created the statement of that sentiment, I was reluctant because I remembered my grade school principal. Her name was Ida Hastings, and she stood all of 4'9". So I was about her height when I was in the 5th and 6th grade, and sat across her desk because I got in trouble on the playground for saying the word shit. And I still had that trauma in my head. And I was like, we can't do that. We work with nonprofit organizations. We have thousands of nonprofits all over the world that we work with. And those nonprofits that might have like some kind of religious affiliation, how are they going to feel that we have the word shit in our value statements? And my team convinced me that there's a difference in how you embody and feel when you say care deeply versus give a shit. So we went with give a shit. And that's the one that our team members will cite more often than not when they're calling each other out for doing something. We recognize team members every day. We have a daily stand up for 11 minutes at 11:11 every day. We've been doing that for over 15 years.
Wow.
And names go up on the board virtually or in person, depending on where those team members are. So everybody has the board in front of them, and names go on the board for living our values. And we've been doing that meeting literally every business day for a long time. And the one that gets called out the most is give a shit. And then once a quarter, we induct 4 new people into our Values Hall of Fame, and then they get written about in our annual yearbook when we publish that at the end of the year. So they all kind of line up that way.
By the way, I would encourage anyone to go to firespring.com and to go find the yearbook, because I read it cover to cover, Jay, and it was such an interesting, entertaining. In fact, I still have it up on my screen, and give people. I thought this was fun towards the end of how you recognize people giving an F.
Yes. Here's the copy of the book. And I'll point out right now for those that are listening online, if you just go find my name, just type in Jay Wilkinson to LinkedIn, connect with me, share your address. I'll send you a physical copy as well, because it's really beautiful to read that way. One of the things that we do weekly, and this happened organically in our organization, it's not something we planned or executed on. We moved our facilities from one building to another. And there was a gentleman that spent a ton of time. He did the most work. When we had our first stand-up meeting, we call it the fire starter because we're Firespring, right? And we do it as an odd time of day at 11:11, and we calculated that to optimize physical attendance. You know, our sales reps and others were in the office during that time of day more than any other. And then there's some magic behind the symmetry of an 11:11 meeting that lasts 11 minutes, which you can look up online. It's fascinating what's behind the number 11. But at our meeting, the first meeting we had in our new building, we had taken the F off of the Firespring that was behind the receptionist counter in the old building, and somebody hung a chain on it and gave it to the guy that did all of the work, you know, to get everybody organized and everybody moved in, just as a thank you. And then for some reason, the following week, he was inspired to give it to somebody else. He said, I don't think I should hold on to this. I think so-and-so should have it. And it became a tradition. So every Friday now at our fire starter meeting for, you know, the last 11 years since we moved into our new building, the F gets passed on from one person to another.
What a fun tribal ritual to have, right? When you look at great cultures, there's always, you know, rituals, things that happen. That one is a fun one.
And I think the ones that kind of happen organically like that just have more meaning.
I totally agree. Which value do you love the most?
That's like asking which child you love the most, because, you know, it's I would say the value that I embody the most in terms of just how I connect with our people and our teams is probably just the give a shit value. In fact, I sign all of my notes to team members, shit givingly yours. And because that sentiment has been attached to so many messages, you know, to all of our team members, I would say that's the one that probably hits the hardest.
That is fun. Now, I know those weren't always your values, right? You've changed them over time.
Yes.
What were the values before, and why did you just decide to change them?
Like most companies, we had a series of values that were generic in nature, you know, like, you know, so, you know, the boring statement of like, you know, it's been so long now that I'm having a hard time recalling them, but I know one of them was something around the fact that we are accountable, you know, that we are accountable, which I think that word has negative connotations associated with it.
Yes.
It feels like someone else is holding over you. Now we don't think of it as accountability as we do as autonomy. That is managed autonomy. It's giving people the spirit to go do what they need to do. But accountable was one of our values, and you know, we had ethical and things like that. Well, who wouldn't say, you know, that they're ethical? It was just really boring words, and we did it. We kind of invented this. We came up with this thing we call the reality show. We've now used this exercise with over 100 companies that we've helped go through this process. It's really cool. Starts with bringing everybody together. And if you have like several hundred people, you do this in groups of about 50. You just ask everybody in the room to write down the name of 3 people on a little index card that we're choosing. Who would you nominate? Because we're going to choose someone to go on a reality show. And there's going to be a camera that follows them around everywhere. We want to choose the people that embody what we want to be known for. Like how do we want to be seen? The way they communicate with each other and our customers, the way that they do their job. What are the names of those 3 people? And then they go, and then after everybody's written their names down, okay, now write down the words or actions that you identify in those people that made you choose them. So like, well, you know, they always make me laugh, or they make me, you know, they always follow up with me. They never leave me hanging, whatever it is. But write down those things. We put all of those things on the wall. We'll do a combine, kill, keep thing to get the list down to like 30. And then we stack rank them. We send a survey to all the people and they put them in order. And then we average them out. Whatever's in the top 10, those become the potential value sentiments. And then we distill those down into statements and do another round of stack ranking. And you can hone in. It's always really clear the 3 to 5 things that these people value the most in each other. And we actually do that activity every 5 years, because values, just like a sports team, When LeBron left, Cleveland, the culture of that team changed. And every 5 years, like a sports team, a business culture can evolve and it can change. Now, if you're hiring people and you're managing and living the values every day, they shouldn't change much, but they could evolve over time. So we actually do this activity every 5 years with a mindset that we may be adding one or replacing one, and always being mindful that we can change.
What an amazing and fun exercise to go through. I think sometimes people struggle with where should the values of a company come from? Where should the vision of the company come from? And, hopefully at the outset, it should come from the CEO or the owner who started the business.
In a startup.
Because, yeah. So, but a lot of times people don't have any of them, right? And we leave all of how we're going to treat each other to chance. And then we get really frustrated and pissed off that that guy's not giving a shit. Well, I don't know. Was he supposed to give a shit? Was he not supposed to give a shit? I don't know. And I just think that that's the real foundation of every business, creating the clarity so that you can make decisions efficiently and effectively as you go through the process. And so how do those three values help you operate your business? Make decisions, allocate resources.
And literally everything we do is filtered through the actions that are created as a result of those values. And the key to building an organization where values are truly embodied and lived is to state them in a way that makes it understandable of what it means to live those values. And so that's why in our quarterly all-team meeting, we induct 4 new people into our Values Hall of Fame. We don't just say, hey, Roanne is being inducted into our Hall of Fame today. We tell the story as to why. So we have value stories. And at this point, we have hundreds upon hundreds, probably more than 1,000 value stories that we've created over the years. And we archive and keep those. So a new team member, if they really want to know what it takes to be a high-performing, amazing team member, just read through these value stories and you know exactly what it is that you need to do, because they're actionable stories. And that's the key, is just make sure that we state them in a way that every team member knows exactly what it means to live those values in their actions.
I think that's so smart, capturing them, writing them down. I've said many times to leaders that, your real values are the stories that are told at the lunch table when you're not there.
Yeah.
And we can put whatever we want on the wall, but if you're not actually embodying them and living them and holding people to account to live them, then you become a soulless organization. I think that's the genesis of how that starts to happen.
Yeah.
Jay, I was looking, you guys gave $2.1 million back to the community in 2021. It's an astounding number. There's many companies that don't even do 2.1 million in revenue. Can you walk us through the Power of Three program? Because I think it's so unique, so innovative, so brilliant. And, when you look at purpose-driven companies, it really is, this is bigger than us. We can be a good steward of the community and do a good company too, right? We can run a profitable company.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really simple. Our Power of Three program is that we give 1% of our top line revenue to nonprofit organizations that we support in our communities. We give 2% of our products and services in kind to nonprofit organizations, and then 3% of our people. Those are our team members who volunteer 1 full day every month for a cause of their choice. It doesn't need to be a formal 501c3 nonprofit. They can go, again, volunteer in their children's school. They can go pick up trash in their neighborhood. It can be anything where they're contributing in a positive way to the fabric of our communities, whatever feels right to them. So all of our team members work with their managers on, and in our quarterly conversations that we have with every team member, we talk about volunteer hours. It's just as important as getting your work done. We track and follow up, are you getting your volunteer hours done? And giving back to the community is everything. And so when we do the math on the cash that we've donated, the in-kind products and services, and then we track the average wage of our employees, and for the volunteer hours they spent, that's how we calculate those numbers. In 2021, the total was $2.17 million, I believe. And it's something that's really important to us. That number is as important to me as the profit numbers at the end of a year.
Has that in your mind? I mean, I'm 48. You're just a little bit ahead of me. And, there's been times where I've thought to myself, running a successful business is really fun, but what is this all about? Is it really just about stacking more Benjamins into your bank accounts and feeling good about it? What's the fulfillment for you that's come out of this to look and say, yeah, no, I'm going to create something that's greater than me.
Yeah.
And it started when you were 15. And now you've embodied that your whole life to a point where your company gave $2.17 million away. What's that look like? What's that feel like for you?
I am motivated by the mindset building together with all of our people. We have so many people that have been here for 20 plus years, and are as invested in the future of the business as I am. My plan with our business is to essentially gift the company to the employees. There is no plan, like most companies, for us to have an exit someday where we're bought out by another company. We plan to build an evergreen company, which means that it will exist for 100 plus years. And that means that we're going to need to reinvent ourselves every 5 to 8 years, knowing full well that technology and times and products and services and other things will change and shift. So we're constantly, we have a mantra, find a better way. We're constantly focused on find a better way and continuous evolution. And as part of that, our goal as a collective group of 200 employees that are building this business is to build a company that thrives for 100 plus years, so that our grandchildren and our ancestors someday will know that, hey, my uncle, my aunt, my mom, my dad, my grandparents, whatever, were part of that. And our dream is to build it so that it becomes self-sustaining and continues to, long before Yvon Chouinard gifted Patagonia, which was beautiful and amazing. He's one of my business heroes, for what it's worth.
Absolutely.
We've been planning to do something very similar. The Firespring Foundation has existed for, I think, 9 years now, and we're just getting started ramping that up. And the goal is for the Firespring Foundation to one day, when I'm long gone off the planet, to be doing work that truly ripples and impacts the world, and that all of the people that are part of this company are building that, and part of it, and part of the story that builds that perpetual evergreen enterprise that we're doing. It's not about making enough money to build a house in Aspen. I have no interest in that. It's just maybe I'm missing a gene somewhere that is that I should have. I don't know, but I really don't have interest in that. I do have a lot of interest in giving all of the people that are part of this organization an opportunity to build something that's bigger than ourselves, and to pass it down to the next people that come along.
That is so brilliant, because you look at the world today, and if you watch the news or read the newspaper, which I try to do as little as possible of, because of the toxic, negative stories that are run again and again. And you talk about mindset, and Stephen Covey, whose book I absolutely love, that abundance mindset. Most people live in a scarcity mindset, constantly trying to get their small little piece of the pie, and they're going to elbow their grandmother out of the way, and they're going to elbow their brother out of the way, because by golly darn gee, I'm going to get my slice of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that type of thinking. It was interesting. My wife and I were at a birthday party, and there were pizzas ordered, and we went up, and I took a slice of pizza because I looked around. And I thought, geez, there's a number of people here, and so I took one slice. And someone who was an acquaintance came over, and he took 3 slices, and he looked at me and said, "You better get some more. The pizza's going to run out." And I just thought it was such an interesting mindset of like, I need to get mine, and be damned of all the rest of everything that's happening. instead of saying, maybe I'll just take one slice and let's see what happens and see if there's more, and to make sure that everyone gets a little piece of the pie. And, that dichotomy was really interesting to me to be personally involved in that. I was just thinking, well, I guess that's why there's such division in the world.
Yeah, that's a great example of how that manifests in our daily life. Great example.
Yes, 100%. And there's times where, like, moments like that, I think, man, why do people suck so bad sometimes? And, you just got back from Burning Man. And one of the things that you said to me was, it reaffirmed your faith in humanity.
Oh, yes.
Inspire me, because I would love to know what you saw and why you're inspired.
So I don't know if you know much about Burning Man, or if the listeners to the program have heard of it. I talked to some people that have never heard of it. It's like, what? I've never heard of this, and others that kind of have that look in their eye, like, oh yeah, that's where the place go to do drugs and do weird things and run around naked and whatever. There's all kinds of things that happen at Burning Man, and I will say that of the 85,000 people from all over the world that descend into the Nevada desert, into the harshest climate on the planet. It's one of the top 3 lowest humidity rates in the world in that desert. It's harsh. It's difficult. It can be stressful. It's not easy, and it never is. But that's one of the things that makes it so affirming. But these 85,000 people come together. And, it doesn't matter if you're quiet or talkative, if you're an introvert or extrovert, if you're way out there when it comes to experimenting with whatever drugs and other things, or if you're incredibly cautious and no way would I ever do any of that. All of these people, all of them find their people at Burning Man. There's this sense of radical inclusion. In fact, that's one of the 10 principles of Burning Man, so that when people come in, no matter where you go around the playa, around the village that's created just temporarily, because a month after Burning Man, there's no trace that anyone was there. It's the largest leave no trace event in the world, actually. And this radical inclusion philosophy just makes everyone feel seen and heard and welcome. I've never been asked at Burning Man in the many years I've been going, never been asked, what do you do? I've been asked a lot, like, who are you? And why, the who and the why questions. We talk, you have deep, meaningful conversations with people there that I very seldom ever have in other places, because it makes people uncomfortable when you go really deep in a social situation where you're meeting someone for the first time, but not at Burning Man. At Burning Man, you can go deep right away. And that radical inclusion combined with radical self-reliance, that you have to bring everything you're using, and then there's also a characteristic, a principle of radical self-expression. Burning Man is about living out your day, the 8 days that Burning Man lasts, in a way that if there were no shackles, if you didn't worry about what other people thought of you, what would you wear? How would you go around? How would you engage with people? And it's really powerful to give people an experience where, without judgment, they can become whatever version of themselves, makes them, get excited, a little titillated about spending this day, whatever that is to each individual. It's such a beautiful place. And, I want my father, who's in his 80s, to go to Burning Man. I want my kids all to go there. I think I
have to convince my wife to go. This sounds amazing.
Speaking of that, Jerry, the most important thing I've ever done for my relationship with my wife, and I will say, pre-Burning Man, and now that we've gone every year since 2016, and now after having a lot of experience, it is the single most important thing we've ever done for our relationship. We experience this together, and we go into it with this mindset of a team. And we have lots of conversations about boundaries. What are we open to? What are we not open to? And those kind of things. And it's brought things up in our relationship that we just never discussed or even thought about before. And the connection of that relationship that I have with my wife is beyond what I ever thought was even possible for me. And my parents were married 51 years before my mother died of breast cancer, and had the most amazing relationship. But I've talked to my dad about this a lot in the last several years, but they didn't ever have the kind of connection that I have with my wife now. And I see that manifest in the playfulness and the exploration and the things that we do together. And Burning Man brings that out in us, and it's just beautiful.
That's amazing. My wife's the one that usually comes up with the crazy ideas, Jay. She walked in the house during the pandemic and said, "What do you think about selling our house and traveling the country?" And I thought, well, that's not exactly what I expected to hear from you today, but we did it. We did it. We sold our house. We traveled the country. It was an amazing experience. And, I always thought it was interesting when people said, "Oh, I wish I could do that." And I said, you can, you're just choosing not to, right?
We all have that choice.
That is the beautiful thing. How has Burning Man made you a better leader? I know it's made you a better person. Usually those things are correlated. Hopefully they are. Has it made you a better leader?
Without question, it has. One of the other principles of Burning Man is immediacy. It's one of the 10 principles. And immediacy is, and here's the way it manifests there, and then carries over into my work world and my default life. At Burning Man, there's no cell signal and there's no internet connection. So your phone is a camera. That's the only thing you can use it for. And so you have no access to the outside world. And there's this thing, and there's been a lot of research around this. If you're off the grid for a day, you feel nervousness and anxiousness and like, what am I missing? The FOMO. But by the end of the second day, you start to just kind of like lean into it and rest into it. And then pretty soon you just forget about it. And the forced immediacy that happens at Burning Man, simply because you're off the grid, allows you to be fully present. And if you're walking away from your camp to go to, say, a porta potty that might be a 5-minute walk from where you are, and this kind of thing happens all the time, oftentimes you go off, and then it's 4 hours later, you come back to camp with a big smile on your face because you just had an interaction with these people that that played spin the wheel of truth or dare, and you had the most fun you can imagine, whatever. And you don't care, you're off schedule, so what? Embrace and enjoy the moment. And we've translated that in so many ways to the business world, and to bring presence and immediacy, and just celebrating small victories, and appreciating one another, and being present in our relationships with our clients and with each other. We do a lot of things at the beginning of meetings to kind of pull everyone together and share some laughter or personal stories before you jump right into trying to solve, our biggest problem that day. There's a lot of things that we've learned about immediacy that we've really translated into how we can run a business.
I'm even more intrigued. That's amazing. I think, to that point, we're all sold, the words of the devil, more and now. We need to have it more. We need to have it now.
Yeah.
As opposed to understanding, the place that I'm at and appreciating where it is. As you think about kind of continuing to evolve as a person, as a leader, you've started to change your own vision for the world, right? And for yourself. Mm-hmm. Tell me about curating your own consciousness and how that's manifesting itself inside the business, for yourself, for your impact on the world. Yeah.
I spent probably more time in my life than I should have thinking that an important aspect of my role as a leader in our business and in our community and other things was to mentor, to train, to help, to lift up. And all of those things are really important. And until I finally had the realization that pointing all of that effort in here and focusing on curating my own consciousness, so that through my actions, I can potentially inspire others to become a better version of themselves, not through my words, but through my actions. Until I figured that out, I didn't truly start to realize my potential. A lot of times people will hear things like that and it sounds selfish. You're spending all this time on you, and not helping others and whatever. And that's not what I'm saying at all. By spending this time about becoming a more conscious leader and developing access to my own expanded consciousness, so I can tap into energy and power that I didn't even realize that I had before. I've heard people talk about it, and I say, "Woo, woo, woo! That's crazy." But until I really started to go deeper into meditation, and then transcendental meditation, and then understanding mindfulness, and then researching all these different protocols and ways. You hear funny stories about Aaron Rodgers going and having ayahuasca in Peru, right? And going on this journey. Well, the truth is, for millennia, every culture in the history of the world, every culture, with the exception of one, the Inuit people, because plants didn't grow there, every culture had a rite of passage that their young adults would have a rite of passage where they did some kind of plant-based medicine because it gave them access to a level of consciousness that wasn't available without that. There are ways to hack into that now through other means, through meditation and mindfulness, that are so powerful and so empowering. And I've really enjoyed learning how to guide myself more deeply into this this notion that I'm capable of transmitting energy and doing so much more than I ever thought I was, than I ever thought was possible. And I can only do that by embodying it, but not by talking about it. So, I'm using all these words to describe it, but yet the true power is in bringing people that I love into, and at the very least, showing them a path where they can take this journey themselves.
I think you're doing that personally, Jay, and I think you're doing that through your own actions with your company. It is inspiring, because I always think about purpose-driven companies, and you are like the embodiment of that for me. And I appreciate the heck out of you coming here to share those insights that you've learned over time of what it means to make an impact and live a meaningful life and to expand, getting focused. I want to finish with, do more good, because it's over your shoulder. And I know it's an organization that's important to you. Can you share that as a last piece for us?
Yeah, it's something that I'm really, I'm really dedicating the rest of my working life, at least, to the work that I can do to help educate and inspire and empower other business leaders and companies who are on their path to figuring out, how can leaders in any business pursue a path to purpose that is meaningful, not only for them, but for the people that work as part of that business, and the people they impact in their communities, their customers, their vendors, everyone that's part of that ecosystem. And so through the Do More Good movement, I pulled together the most amazing team. If I were to create the Mount Rushmore of the people that inspire me currently, that are actively doing the work today in these four areas, one of them is a guy named Rand Stagen, who is a co-founder of Conscious Capitalism. He's the one that inspired John Mackey and others to create, through Rand's, persistent, they call him in the movement, in the Conscious Capitalism movement, Uncle Rand, affectionately. And then Kate Williams is the CEO of 1% for the Planet, which was the original organization that Yvon Chouinard founded, that really started to create a pathway for companies that wanted to really put their effort on the environment and on planet Earth. And then we have Jay Cohen Gilbert, who is the co-founder of Certified B Corporations, of B Labs, the company that certifies businesses like Firespring. And then lastly, Preeta Bansal was President Obama's chief legal counsel for 8 years, and she created benefit corporation legislation, which is now passed in 37 states. So benefit corporation legislation, Certified B Corp, 1% for the Planet, and Conscious Capitalism are the four largest frameworks around how businesses can apply a framework to really pursue purpose. Those are our founding board. And I'm working together with them on creating education and a series of workshops and opportunities to train and educate business leaders. Small business and mid-sized business is our focus. We know we're not going to change the Fortune 5,000, those really big big entities, but we do have a lot of opportunity to help businesses like Firespring and others our size, how to navigate this trail and be focused on elevating your business so that you can positively impact the world. And I believe that we are on the precipice of the biggest shift in business that has happened since the computer age and the industrial age before that. There's so much evidence that exists that business leaders that do not understand they have to change the way they think about business and focus on all aspects, not just the economic, the putting money in the pockets of the owners, that they have to focus on the environmental, just the other aspects of how we affect communities. If business leaders do not focus on this, I don't believe they're going to be around in 5 to 8 years. There's already evidence that's abundant that the Gen Z and the millennial employees will not work for those companies. So you're not going to be able to find anybody who will work for you, and or clients, customers will not do business with those companies if they don't understand that they exist for something more than only putting money in the owners in the pockets of the owners. It's a major transition, and we want to help companies make this transition, which in turn will help reclaim capitalism, for the good guys, and because there's so much crap, bullshit that's passed on around capitalism for good reason, because corporatism and cronyism and the bad parts of capitalism get a lot of notoriety.
Noise.
And NYU did a study that shows that more than 80% of the depictions of business leaders and managers in companies are negative. So it's no wonder why someone that's, say, 30 years of age thinks that capitalism is bad, because everything that they've seen in the movies and television shows these business leaders as being greedy, whatever. And it's tilted heavily away from what the reality is. But there is still a lot of that kind of stuff going on. And so we're just trying to do this little thing of saving capitalism, and trying to make a difference.
I love your humility. I could sit and talk to you for hours and hours about this, because I believe so much that you can do right and do good. I mean, there is no reason not to do both, because eventually, I mean, you need customers, you need to return money to the community. Otherwise, you just continue to have a concentration of wealth. And what a lineup of people that you have involved inside. I mean, I would love to have you back. Maybe we'll do it in the spring and just keep on unpeeling this, because you've embodied this, Jay. It's not like, it's like when I'm invited inside companies to try and help them, I always get a kick out of like the consultants and coaches out there that have never run a business. And it's like, how are you going to help those people? I don't understand. You've never had the pressure of like signing the check and figuring it out. And like, what's the problem we're going to solve? And you can sit there just like you're doing with your actions. You need less words, more actions. You're doing all of that inside Firespring. And I just love it. I can't say enough about the work that you're doing, and the fact that you've lived it, you're embodying it, and now you are spreading it more and more and more. Because I agree with you. I say the pandemic created a tipping point in all of these things. We always knew 75% of people hated the work that they were doing. Survey after survey after survey told us that. And then we sent people home and let them live with their families and said, well, just have some quiet time. People started to think, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I trading time for money? Where's my impact? Is this what it's all about?
Yeah.
And I think that's the tipping point that you're obviously a part of, but it is the new paradigm. I believe it with all my heart and soul that you're right. Leaders who are in it for themselves, they won't be leading, because people won't choose to join them on the mission that we're on to go make the impact that we want to go make.
Absolutely.
Fun stuff. All right, Jay, thank you for coming. I'm definitely having you back, though. Definitely. You're going to be the first 2-time guest.
I would be on.
So next week, we have Lindsay Johnson, who runs Word Bank. We're going to continue the purpose-driven month of October. Jay has kicked us off so well. Lindsay also runs a Certified B Corporation out in Colorado. Super committed to the process of understanding how people, profits, and planets can work together to create an incredible business and incredible opportunities for the people and protect our planet. So hopefully you guys will join us next week. Jay, again, thanks for having us on the show.
It's been my honor. Thank you so much for the invitation.